I mean, do you believe the fact that you use words like God and faith with such enthusiasm puts you in you are the shade under which all of these really barbarous forms of religiosity still relax and luxuriate and thrive because you and I don't mean you personally, I mean religious liberals, moderates, New Age types who still want to talk about God and faith and not differentiate what they're saying from the rest of God talk, which is really what is shaping our conversation about religion in this country and this world.
Of course, you write very beautifully about that, about the fact of religious moderates, as you call them, being coveralls for a whole lot of messy stuff. Okay, yeah. I mean, you write about that. And I don't know that we're talking about these kinds of foci. I think we're trying to talk about what is the future of, if you want to say it's religion, future of God, future of spirituality, as a result of what is coming in through traditional and the new science, what is coming in through education, what is coming in through the fact that I said the world mind is taking a walk with itself. What is it going to start to look like? What would you like it to look like? Because spirituality is not going to go away. I think you'll agree about that. And, you know, however brilliant your arguments are, they are not going to convince people who have a passionate entheosiasmos, being filled with the enthusiasm of the sense of God, because I personally believe it is given to us as part of our human condition. What I'm not hearing here, and I really want to hear, and perhaps we'll get to it with the questions, is what does a robust faith in our human condition, which may or may not include our spiritual beliefs, really begin to look like?
A religion which is devoid of authentic spiritual experience will become diabolical, with increasing weapons of mass destruction, weapons of biological warfare, nuclear bombs, but a spirituality-imbued science will actually lead to science healing the ecosystem, the restoration of species, social justice, and the removing of poverty. So I think it's very important to bring a deep spiritual knowing of inseparability, love, compassion, kindness, and peace into our science.
Okay, here's an example. When Mohammed Atta flew the plane into the World Trade Center building, I'm firmly convinced he believed in love and compassion and spirituality and commitment to his belief.
His own
of
tribe.
Course, Deepak, that's
only
what everybody
for his own
does.
Tribe, but that's not spirituality.
Yes, well, for him it is
a domain of awareness where we go beyond our tribal identity and experience our universality. Okay. That's the fundamental definition of spirituality.
Well, for you, and if you could convince suicide bombers and religious extremists of
Talking
that,
about the future.
Okay, all right.
But well, if that was would you be comfortable with the future he's painted?
Well, of course, it's much better than what we've got. But why all the jargon?
See, when you don't understand the language of a particular school of thought, you call it woo-woo.
No, but you're using it in a way that nobody else uses it.
My patients would think we were speaking woo-woo because we spoke Latin words. You don't understand the language of geology or astronomy, so you're equally at liberty to call it woo-woo. I am engaged in dialogue with people of real science. Last week, I had a conference at my center called Sages and Scientists, where Hans-Peter Duer, who was a colleague and student of Werner Heisenberg, and we engaged in this science, this kind of dialogue, and he did not call it woo-woo.
I have a question. It concerns near-death experiences, but when you read the Old Testament in the ancient Hebrew, it discusses God as being light, and then Jesus said that we were made in God's image. So I'm wondering if that means that the soul was light. And if so, when you look at near-death experiences, people talk about going into the light. Does the light leave the body? And if so, is that the energy structure of the body that before the brain and the body decays to a point that it can't be resuscitated, is still communicating with the body via like bioentanglement, for lack of a better word? Is that something that is a really real experience that could one day be measured by science, but also point to the validity of the intuitive truth of certain wisdom, traditions, or religions?
First of all, in the word itself, near death. They're not dead. They're near dead. There's a very big difference there. And And you can replicate these in the lab. You can put on Michael Persiger's God helmet that bombards the temporal lobes with electromagnetic fields, and people have out-of-body near-death experiences right there in his room. You can do it through oxygen deprivation by accelerating people in a centrifuge. These are pilots. Over half of them, when they accelerate up to where they pass out, they have out-of-body near-death experiences. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. They go through the tunnel and so on. You can see the videotape. They're just sitting there drooling. They're out. And of course, you can do this through sleep deprivation, through extreme environments. Arctic climbers, Arctic explorers, mountain climbers, solo sailors have these kinds of out-of-body near-death sense presence experiences under extreme environmental conditions. So those three lines of evidence tell us it's in the brain, not outside of it.
I would say that near-death experiences neither prove nor disprove anything. You know, of course there's damage to the brain, but the brain is also a localizing device. And in the absence of brain, you can still have a consciousness which has no thought. You can still have a consciousness which is non-local, which is awareness in itself. So near-death experiences neither prove nor anything or disprove anything. Of course, there has got to be a biological correlate of the experience. And ischemia, brain damage, etc. also proves that. On the other hand, there are people with extensive brain damage who have profound scientific and musical epiphanies.
What's your name?
Leonard Mladinov.
And so, Leonard, you are a quantum physicist?
I'm a theoretical physicist, and I'm also writing a book with Stephen Hawking, so I could comment on the God question with Stephen Hawking.
So, in the spirit of our no comments, just questions, what's your question? And to whom? I'll hold the mic.
Oh, you hold the mic, all right. That means it really has to be a question, okay.
Right, this is my form of
It would be to Deepak to say, would you like to have a short course in quantum mechanics sometime so that we can straighten out your slightly misuse of quantum notation?
Thank you, Leonard. I would be honored, sir, and I accept your offer with great gratitude. And I would like to be educated so I can be clearer in my dialogue. By the way, today is Einstein's birthday, so we are at a very fitting place. And it just occurred to me, 3.14 is the approximation of the first approximation of pi, which refers to infinity. So as long as your quantum physics explanations help me understand infinity, I would be honored.
That would be good, but we'll have to keep it local, though. I don't think we can make it non-local.
No, but
Can I bother you for just a second? What is it?
Sir, do you, sir, believe in the infinite?
I believe I understand to some extent the concept of infinity. I'm not sure what it means to believe in the infinite.
Okay, do you think that your mathematics requires the infinite to explain things that you explain to people?
We do use the concept of infinity quite a lot.
Thank you.
We do. You're welcome.
What is it about Deepak's use of quantum physics that bothers you?
The term non-local, the use was not correct, and the correlations of the pacemaker and the different electrical things going on.
I happen to disagree, by the way.
Oh, I assume you did since you said that.
You know, you're authority. I happen to disagree.
I would love to. I'd love to talk about it.
I think consciousness is non-local.
I'm sorry?
I think consciousness is non-local.
Consciousness. Oh.
Is non-local.
Yeah, you know, I've never really run across a definition of consciousness that I understood. So maybe you could teach me something, and I can.
A superposition of possibilities.
Okay. Well, all right. I know what each of those words means. I still don't think I know.
I'm right now talking to a conscious being.
I'm sorry?
I'm speaking to a conscious being.
I hope so.
Even though the conscious being is pretending to be a physicist.
Is pretending?
Pretending means pretending in the larger context. You are an infinite being who's taken on the identity of a physicist in space and time.
Deepak, how can there be a conversation with someone like Michael or Sam that can have a constructive outcome for those of us who are intensely curious about why we're here and what we're supposed to do?
And I would like to have the conversation if he stops using the cop-out word, woo-woo. That's a cop-out, okay? But
I suspect
yes,
Alberto is disappointed.
If I was having a conversation with Michael, I would say, help me, dear scientists, to understand why we have this deep yearning. Why do we have this deep longing to understand the nature of the beginnings of the universe? Why do we have this deep yearning and longing to understand ourselves? Help me. If you can help me as a scientist to explain why this is built into the scheme of evolution, or does evolution have to do anything, I am here to be enlightened.
Sam, what do you say to that?
Well, I think it's we don't all have this deep yearning. I mean, that's rather obvious. If you took the 100,000 people on planet Earth at this moment who felt this deep yearning to understand our place in the universe most acutely, and you dispatch them, we would be left without a lot of people thinking about the origins of the universe in any real sense.
What do you think people are doing on Sunday morning all over this country?
What was that?
What are people doing on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock all over this country? They're thinking about that issue.
They're not thinking about, I mean, cosmology is not their concern.
Well, they might not call it cosmology, but they are thinking about why we're here and what we're supposed to do.
I'm sorry,
Deepak, let me just finish. On Sunday morning,
right,
or Friday afternoon, or Friday night, depending on when you worship, whether you want to call it cosmology, whatever you want to call it, people are there to ask the basic questions. Who are we? Why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing?
I was responding to what Deepak was saying.
But I think that's what he was saying.
People want to be happy. They know the difference between happiness and suffering. They want to feel a part of a community. They want to feel the best they've ever felt and better than they've ever felt. And they constantly notice that life makes that difficult. And our spiritual traditions are a response to that circumstance. And our beliefs, the beliefs that console us about what happens after death, are obviously a response to that circumstance. I mean, your child dies. What you're immediately confronted with is, what can I now do to not suffer this way for the rest of my life? And one thing people have found to do is tell each other a story that death is an illusion, that we all get together at the right hand of Jesus after we die. That does the trick for a lot of people, and people are mightily attached to that story. But that story is really both it's in its products and in the way of getting there, the antithesis of the scientific frame of mind. And we just can't conflate them. And we have to notice when we're lying to ourselves and when we're lying to our children. And we have to notice that there's a liability to pretending to know things we don't know.